Welcome back to Stratwatch. Here in episode 5, we'll be covering Cloud9's defense in Gibraltar against Reunited in the Overkill.gg finals. Cloud9's take on this map and their defense is very interesting. I hope you find this video insightful on how to execute this strategy. Welcome to episode 5, guys. Again, in this episode, we'll be covering Gibraltar's defense executed by Cloud9. Cloud9's specific variation on the strategy is very interesting in my opinion, and is something that we don't see that often from other teams. Specifically on this first point, like most teams, Cloud9 is going to seed the first capture point. Now on this map, go ahead and breeze over this real quickly. This map does have you could say an advantage to the offenders at the beginning because it's very easy to flank defensive positions. You can get around the left side of the map using the cliff and get onto the back setup that the defense would potentially use, or you can use that building to access the catwalk. So Cloud9, like most high skill teams right now, will go ahead and back off and seed into point 2. However, the uniqueness of Cloud9's defense really does begin here. Their strategy relies on this idea of being almost an anamorphous blob that they have to react to whatever the enemy team brings. Now at the beginning here, while there is a unfortunate pick by Unfixed or onto Unfixed, we will see a instance of this ability for Cloud9 to react to how the enemy team is moving in. Specifically witnessed here when the side of Reunited jumps forward to go on and take out Reaver. Reaver. The two Winstons, specifically Debit and Kai, are going to jump down onto the payload, and they're going to corral the side of Reunited into the server room. What they do with the Winstons is they create a situation where they have to be fought to get to one of the two snipers. Now, although Reaver does go down in this situation, behind us on the camera angle, there's actually going to be Surefour and Grego hanging out, ready to take all of the shots that they need to be able to take out the force from the push from Reunited. And as you can see, here's Grego's view as he was set up behind and is just going to turn around and go for 2easy here. Now, although he does get taken out by 2easy, you can see that the Winstons did their job. They zoned out and they were able to corral the enemy team into a position where, unfortunately, they just didn't have the ability to react to the setup. Now, in the second fight here, we'll go ahead and slow it down for a little bit, as there are some important things that we need to note for this fight. Again, I want to go back to this concept that this lineup is incredibly mobile. With the double Widowmakers, you have the double grapple. Now, on a 12-second cooldown, Widowmaker is pretty mobile. Winston is considered one of the most mobile tanks right now. His leap is almost usable every 3 seconds, as it has a 5-second cooldown. And then also, Soldier has a sprint. Now, when you combo the fact that Mercy's Guardian Angel combos with this kind of mobility uniquely, you get a very fast and reactive lineup. Now here, Reunited changes up their strategy immediately, and they go for this incredible push on to the setup in the background. They do end up taking out Reaver, but this is exactly what I'm talking about this mobility. Surefour immediately sprints back into the room, forcing the team to decide, the Reunited to decide, do we go in and chase Surefour, who's amped up, sitting on his healing? Or do we deal with the fact that, meanwhile, while we jumped these 3 DPS, there was 2 Winstons sitting on the payload harassing our heroes? Now, this creates an opportunity for the Winstons to get behind onto Morte, and they end up taking him out. But again, this entire time, while Reaver may have gone down, Grego was able to get set up from away from this fight and able to get better angles and pick at the heroes because they constantly respond and spread out depending on the needs of the situation. So again, we'll go ahead and watch that fight in a little bit of closer speed, as I just want you guys to see how fast Cloud9 reacts and spreads out and uses their lineup's ability to be able to position based upon what the offensive team is doing. Now, again, Surefour is specifically important here in this lineup. Now, while you could sub a soldier or something else for his position, the main goal of this lineup is that the two Widowmakers in this situation are creating a sort of extreme pressure from two different angles, in which the center of that angle is Sure4, who is damage amped by Adam and has the mobility with the biotic field. So he's able to consistently get out of fights, and he's able to get lots of damage out because of that amp. So we'll be moving into the second fight here, or sorry, the third fight here, as the defense again from Cloud9 in this portion is critical to this idea of mobility, spreading out, and reacting to what happens from the offensive side. So again, to recap, so far on the first two fights, we've basically just watched Cloud9's great ability to spread out and exploit the fact that Reaver and Grego are strong Widowmakers, and Sure4 is a very good soldier player. But mainly, the power of this lineup, again, is if you're set up on this high ground, and we can see it with Sure4, your ability to spread out and react to the offensive pressure is incredibly important, not to mention that you do have the double infra sight that you can chain back to back. So on this third fight, we're going to see once again this ability of this malleability that we're talking about, the ability to react to the situation. Now, while Sure4 does get chased down here by a Winston in Primal Rage, notice how Adam is damage amping him the entire time. Meanwhile, in the fight, we can see that exactly what we've been talking about is happening. The two Winstons are on the payload, and they are preventing the offensive side from gaining any time. Because of this, and because of the pressure that is created by the two Winstons, there is less follow-up to be able to take out the DPS after the two Winstons from the offensive side engage hard onto the Widowmaker and Soldier. It is incredibly important that you see that this offensive lineup revolves around this idea of spreading out and being able to force the enemy team, when they're pushing up, into a crossfire. Every single time that Reunited is pushed up in these last three offensives has had to deal with a Widowmaker that they didn't expect in the background, because he just simply walked around while they were fighting the Winstons or dealing with the Soldier. Now, again, I want to echo this point that they react differently depending upon the situation. Now, although Reunited does end up winning this fight, and part of the reason is that they were able to get in and finally take out Adam, who's been sitting on this resurrection for a long time. But the biggest reason that, or the biggest point that I want to get across from these first 3 points is that Cloud9 does not have a rigid method for dealing with the pushes. The situational awareness of each player is what makes this lineup truly work in the first section. Their ability to understand where one of the Widows needs to be so that the other Widow has less pressure, and also Sure4's ability to exploit the space created by Reaver and Grego. And the last point upon that second control point I really want to echo is that it is an anamorphous defense. There isn't a central point to it. While the two Winstons can get on the point, and the two Winstons can control the payload, it's not that the two Winstons are the center of the defense. Rather, the center of the defense is just getting it, or not allowing the offense to control or score the payload on that specific checkpoint. So again, when running this first section of Gibraltar with Cloud9's defense, be ready to react and change the setup, or as the fight is evolving, but always reset to the same setup where you have a Widow on the right side catwalk, the Widow on the left side, and then of course you have Soldier in the center, and the two Winstons ready to jump around. So with that, guys, we'll be moving into the shuttle portion of this video. If you want to go back and review the the first portion of this video, you can go ahead and do so now. In the second portion of Cloud9's defense for Gibraltar, now there are all other portions, but this is the most important part about Cloud9's defense. Of course, the first section that we just went over about the outside second control point, with its ability to be anamorphous and spread out, you have the two Widowmakers, and the Soldier with the Winstons. However, there is another iteration that is very important to the overall defense here on this map. Cloud9 will switch up their strategy slightly for this portion of the map. Now, while most teams will run a similar variant, I think that Cloud9's is very innovative and has been for a very long time. You'll see that they set up very similar to normal teams. However, they first have to get set up. In this first fight, there really isn't anything to note besides great individual play. Strategy-wise, Cloud9 does exactly what they need to in the crisis situation and manage it very well. They successfully stop this push, which allows them to actually set up. And that is very important, and a small note that should always be taken in account when evaluating any strategy or defense is that part of a strategy is that you do need to get set up. And if your strategy is never set up, then you'll never be able to execute it. So we'll go ahead and pause here while I quickly explain the setup. What you have is a soldier right now sitting on top of the shuttle. And while this is common, it is specifically important to note that Sure4 is enabled as a player here. He is the player that Cloud9 is looking to have go off. He has his own Winston behind him, ready to personally bubble him, and he also has a Mercy to personally amp him. I like to point out the internal synergy that the bubble does allow the biotic field to quickly heal up the Mercy and the soldier, so they don't need to ever switch to healing aura. If the side of Reunited ever goes to the right side or tries to push onto the high ground with some sort of verticality heroes, they're going to be up against two hit scan heroes, the left side McCree and the soldier in the center that has a wide range of view that can shoot anyone coming from any one of the 4 doors. In addition to that, if you go to the left side and try to get onto the catwalk going up those stairs, you're going to run into another set of 3 heroes. Specifically, Reaver has his own Lucio sitting behind him on the McCree, and he also has his own personal Winston nearby. If anyone tries to push into Reaver, he simply has the speed into Flashbang to get the kill and then back off, and he has the Winston to give him space to disengage. So getting to Sure4 to get on top of this shuttle is almost impossible. And we'll see this in multiple attempts throughout here, that Reunited just doesn't have an answer to this setup. You can see again, Sure4 able to just use the shuttle to his advantage, getting an easy kill, and he just peeks back and forth, continuing to rain down hell on the enemies. Again, while this is happening, you also have, as you can see the shots ringing out, the McCree on the side with a second angle that is able to do a lot of damage consistently. And their crossfire is what allows the strategy to work specifically. So again, work with the crossfires, and it is very important that they do come out and you focus the same targets. Again though, I want to point out that the trap that happened there was that they went under the shuttle. The Winstons fell down onto them. The crossfire from the soldier and the McCree was just too much to handle, and they end up going down. Now, here in the second fight, it's very important because this is probably the first fight that, or the only fight that Reunited really does have a chance here. Is there's not that many ultimates as up on the Cloud9 as there was before. They're able to get onto the payload. But again, even though they push under here, you can see that the 2 Winstons are specifically making it their job to zone on the payload, to prevent any harassment coming onto Sure4 onto Reaver. And because of this, Sure4 is able in the background just to go off with his tac visor. He always has Adam amping him, always, never going to really anyone else to, yes, to heal occasionally, but primarily to keep Sure4 up. Once he has that resurrection, he'll actually spend significantly less time healing other heroes because he already has the resurrection and he can just bring them up. So once they push under the shuttle and the collapse happens, it becomes impossible for Reunited to disengage, and that's something that's very critical throughout every single one of these fights that you notice about C9, is that when they engage, they also specifically engage with the Winstons to prevent disengagements. If you're going to fight into Cloud9 and you're going to lose, you are going to lose, and they want to make sure that there is no chance of you recovering and coming back out of it and being able to actually get picks or win that fight or disengage and reset. They want you to have to respawn, completely reset while they get set up and they're ready to play. Again, notice how after this great fight that they pretty much wipe all of Reunited, they spend their time getting back set up. For the third fight, which we just watched, and the fourth fight, it is going to be more of the same. I really want to emphasize, though, during these fights that you guys see that Cloud9 reacts to their opponents with the positioning they use, but that their composition is a little bit more rigid, and that allows them to have a more palette of answers. Because they know how the lineup works, they only have to work with positioning to be able to answer what their opponents are bringing. So again, we'll go ahead and recap here on Gibraltar, because this is one of the harder maps that people have a time actually executing offenses on and also executing defenses on. Cloud9's defense is a twofold strategy. The first part is you want to seed the checkpoint. seating the checkpoint at the beginning of the game allows you to fall back onto that catwalk overlooking the second checkpoint and have a Widow to the left and right of a soldier or another hit scan hero in the center with a Mercy amping him, as well as 2 Winstons that are able to move around and jump where they need to and prevent disengagements and prevent flanking, and also to flank the backline, forcing the enemy team forward into the crossfire that we've just set up. Again, the critical part that makes this lineup slightly different than any other composition that you would see is that every single one of the heroes in the first section, the 2 Widows, the Soldier, the Mercy, and the Winston, all have mobility abilities. And that is what allows them to not have a central point to their defense and able to consistently spread out. Here in the hangar phase, it was incredibly important that they get set up with Surefour on the top of the shuttle. Now, while that fight that Reunited takes at the beginning, while Infra's sight is up for them, it doesn't go the best, and that's what Cloud9 needed to go ahead and actually get a full hold here. They were able to stall it out and get this setup that we're talking about. When you set up the soldier on top of the shuttle, he's able to see through the 4 doors and consistently rain bullets into the enemy as they advance. If they ever do try to get on him, there's always the McCree to be speed boosted out of the left side and get a flashbang into Fan, and then Soldier has his own ability to fight back. So again, the strategy in the second part is incredibly hard to deal with because you get corralled under the shuttle and you're constantly dealing with McCree shooting down at you, Soldier shooting down at you, and the second that Cloud9 feels like they've won the fight, they jump in, dominate, clean up, and force a full reset, making it almost impossible for you to be able to actually hold. So thank you so much, guys, for watching this week's episode of Stratwatch. Again, we covered Cloud9's defense on Gibraltar. If you guys are curious about when I will be doing my next episodes, I apologize for the delay on them. I've been doing a fair bit of casting, and I hope to get these episodes onto a regular schedule along with my casting schedule so I can get you guys as much content as possible. Thank you so much for watching, and again, if you're interested in my content, please follow my Twitter @DotaRaptors, and please subscribe to the channel down below, as it will update you with emails whenever I release new videos. Once again, guys, thank you, and I hope you have a great day.